All right, welcome to the Young Turks. We have, obviously, a very important show for you guys. We've got a lot of interviews coming up later. Obviously, some will be about the Gabrielle Giffords shooting, and others will not be. We've got some very interesting stories in the second hour for you guys. And we do have a couple of non-shooting related stories, including a huge one. Tom DeLay, this is breaking news. It happened a little over an hour ago. Tom DeLay has been sentenced to 3 years in prison, which I am actually very surprised by. We will discuss that story a little bit later in the show. I'll tell you what it was that he got convicted of, if you don't remember, and what he's planning to do in appeal, et cetera, how it all went down. We will get to that a little bit later in the program. Obviously, the main topic of our conversation will be about Gabrielle Giffords' shooting and the shooting of 19 others in Arizona. Now, we'll cover all of the spectrum for you, including the right-wing reaction. I'll give you a little preview. Rush Limbaugh says that it was rap music that was the real problem. And Sarah Palin says, in fact, she is the victim. We will discuss that as well. Of course, somebody will get fired from this, and it is incredibly likely to be a Democrat. I will explain. But we're going to have a conversation in the beginning about who the... and by the way, also amazing stories about some of the victims, right? We'll do all of that, right? But in the beginning, obviously, the conversation is who was Jared Lee Loughner? What was he about? Was this political, etc.? And I think I have a definitive case to present to you guys. First, before we do anything else, Congresswoman Giffords' condition, as far as we know it right now, is shockingly decent. She got shot through and through, as I'm sure a lot of you have heard already, from the back of her head to the front of her head, and she is not in a coma, but they are bringing her in and out of consciousness, and when she is conscious, she is responding to some stimuli by squeezing hand, etc., which is, at the very least, a minor miracle. 90 to 95% of headshots kill the person who has been shot. She somehow did not get killed, although, of course, 6 others did, including a 9-year-old girl and some others that were there, including one of her staffers. I'll tell you all about that later in the program. But right now, the doctors are optimistic in regards to Congresswoman Giffords. It's unbelievable. All right, now, Jared Loughner. He's the guy who, of course, did the shooting here of Congresswoman Giffords and 19 others. And there's been talk in the media about whether this is political or it's not political. First, let me start with the obvious. He's a psycho. He's not just a regular old psycho in terms of anybody who does a shooting is psychotic enough to begin with, but this guy is grade A psycho. I've watched all of his videos. I've read what he's said online. He's obsessed by a number of things. The currency, about gold and silver as opposed to dollar currency. He's concerned about grammar and literacy and the meaning of words. Now, I looked at it carefully to see if he had a point about whether grammar and the meaning of words like terrorism, which he discussed. I just wanted to just give it a look to see, my God, does this make any degree of sense? In the end, I came to the conclusion that, like Beautiful Mind, he's writing things on a chalkboard, and they're not at all connected because the guy has lost his mind, okay? There's no connection between the grammar and the currency and all these wild conspiracy theories that he's got. And also, he does this thing about conscious dreaming, about remembering what you dreamt about, and he's obsessed by it. But as one of his professors explained, there is no logical nexus between any of his thoughts. The guy is crazy, right? So there's no question about that. Now, most of the people in the media then end the conversation and say, well, hence, it must not be political, and no one else is responsible other than Loughner for his crazy mind. Well, that's not where it should be. The conversation should be ended. He could be a psycho, and it could still be political. Now, he didn't go and shoot a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker. He shot a politician, and he shot a politician's aide, and he shot a judge. He also shot innocent victims at that political event. When they went to go find what his notes were, they did. They found his notes as to what he was going to do. He called it an assassination. Now, someone who cares about grammar and the meaning of words probably was not mistaken in what he called it. and it is obviously an assassination. And if you believe in terrorism at all, what is more terrorism than shooting one of our politicians, one of our judges, our innocent civilian victims? Well, that is terrorism, and this was definitely, in his own words, a political assassination. Now, was it right wing or was it left wing? Where is he coming from? Well, then the right wing will say, all right, maybe if it was political because he shot a congressman on purpose and called it an assassination, but he is, in fact, and right now, there are Tea Party advocates, conservative blogs, conservative commentators, all calling him a liberal. Now, let me just remind you of the most simple fact. He shot a Democrat. He didn't shoot a Republican. He shot a Democrat. By the way, they never shoot Republicans, and thank God for that. But they always do shoot Democrats. But I'm told that it's a wild coincidence. Every crazy person just randomly happens to shoot Democrats or what he views to be liberals inside a church or liberal organizations like Ties Foundation. It is all a wild coincidence. And the reality is, of course, it is not a wild coincidence. This guy, for all of his crazy ramblings, and he had a big reading list, and Mein Kampf was on it, but Communist Manifesto was on it, and so people say, oh, let's call it even. No, but the main thing you get out of it, and by the way, one of the stupid arguments for why calling him a liberal is that he was a self-avowed atheist and smoked pot. So that's what makes a liberal. He had, if you read all of it, there is not one thing in there where he says, I am on this side, and you can call it a liberal position, a progressive position, a democratic position. Not one, if you actually care to do the research. And by the way, I will remind you, he shot a Democratic politician, not a Republican one, and took a long time to prepare this. He'd been preparing this, and he had confronted her all the way back in 2007. Now, I'm not sure he was planning to assassinate her all the way back then, but that's when this all began. And he'd been planning this assassination for a long time. He was not mistaken. It was not random. It was directed at a Democrat. And his main political driving force, if you can paint it as one, other than being anti-immigration, which is also very conservative. And there were some rumors out, and then Department of Homeland Security saying whether he's tied to a racist group or not. Let's leave that aside for now, because that's not proven enough, right? But anti-immigration, but the main was anti-government. He hated the government. And anybody associated with the government, big government, etc., were the bad guys. Where have I heard that before? Okay, but no, they tell us it's all random, okay? So it's, of course, not random. Now, as to so we have his thoughts on it, and they are incredibly clear. And as to how he might have gotten the idea to target Gabrielle Giffords in the first place. Now, look, there's a lot of different ways that you can go with this. And some of his friends say that it was because she was available. She was in that area. She was this congresswoman. And that is entirely possible. That could certainly be among the motivating factors. The other motivating factors could be that this guy was directed, whenever he turned on any media, to target Democrats, right? For example, Sarah Palin's now infamous map of Democrats who should be taken out. Now, she put these people, including, as you can see, Gabrielle Giffords, in the crosshairs. They were targeted. And there she is right on the list. By the way, 18 of them were not reelected, so they were taken out, as a matter of speaking. There were only 2 that were left, and one of them was Gabrielle Giffords. The other person should hire serious security. Now, at the time, she wrote on our Facebook account, common sense conservatives and lovers of America, don't retreat, instead reload. Please see my Facebook page. By the way, Jared Loughner reloaded, and that's how he was able to shoot more people. He followed Sarah Palin's advice to a T. He did not retreat. He reloaded. When confronted with this, Sarah Palin pretends to be the victim and says, oh my God, what are you talking about? I had nothing to do with it. No. In fact, her spokesperson, Rebecca Mansour, she's a staffer for Sarah PAC, says, we never, ever intended it to be gun sites. Really? You got a funny way of showing it when you put in gun sites on the map. She claimed, no, those were surveyor symbols, and you see crosshairs like that all the time on maps. Well, if that's true, why does Sarah Palin write in reference to the map, reload, don't retreat? Why does she say as late as this November, just a little over a month ago, that those were bullseyes. Does that sound like she's referring to a surveyor's map? No, she's referring to weaponry. And when you asked about that, Mansour, the person that works for her, says, it never occurred to us that anybody would consider it violent. Well, then you're profoundly stupid. I might use the R word, but Sarah Palin has banned it. Really? You put gun sights in, you say take them out, reload, it's bullseyes, and then, oh, golly gee willikers, I never could have seen it coming that people would consider that violent. Of course they would. Look, we're not talking about appealing to regular people. Regular people aren't going to go shoot 20 people in a shopping area. But what they're doing with these psychos is they're using them as hate-seeking missiles. And it's not a coincidence that all of these psychos are going and killing Democrats or liberals, because they have been directed, subtly or not so subtly, throughout all this time to do just that. Now, it's not just Sarah Palin, and it's not just generally. It is specifically directed to Gabrielle Giffords. For example, her opponent, her Tea Party opponent that ran against her in this last election, a guy named Jesse Kelly, took out an ad of upcoming events, and he said, get on target for victory in November, help remove Gabrielle Giffords from office, shoot a fully automatic M16 with Jesse Kelly. Now, does that sound like it is not violent? We got target, we got shoot, we got M16s. How overt did he need to be? This is sickening, it is repulsive, and they tell us it is random. But it is not random. It's also happened in Arizona before. In 1997, a woman by the name of Mary Rose Wilcox was targeted. She was shot, and of course it was a conservative, and she told Huffington Post, I knew at the time that the hate had been caused by a lot of the rhetoric that had gone on. At the trial, the man actually said, I shot her because the radio said I should take her out. Now, when Sheriff Dupnick talked about how Arizona has become the mecca for this kind of violence and nonsense, they criticize him, of course. But in fact, it's been happening for a long time. In fact, at a town hall event of Gabrielle Giffords, earlier, someone had dropped a loaded gun on the ground. And that wasn't clear enough. They threw a brick through her window, and her campaign office had been targeted. She had been targeted over and over again, and this was not lost on her. She has a quote. She said, quote, the way that she has it depicted, meaning Sarah Palin depicting those targets, including Gabrielle Giffords on it, and this is Giffords' own quote, the way that she has it depicted has the crosshairs of a gun sight over our district. When people do that, they have got to realize there are consequences to that. And Gabrielle Giffords was 100% right. And now there are consequences. And these are the consequences. But they tell us, hey, let's call it even. Well, it's not even. It is. Now, let's go and let's find out. Well, is it all sometimes Democrats, sometimes Republicans? No. Now, whether it's the people that are inciting the violence or the actual result, the people who are committing the violence. When you go to the, in my opinion, it is violence in and violence out. Let's show you the violence in. Here are some of the quotes, and there were dozens of these, and we had to cull them down to these. Here are some of the quotes from some of the folks on the right-wing side, okay? Let me get you the list. There's so much information against them. Here it is. First, Representative Michelle Bachmann. Here's what she had to say. I want people in Minnesota armed and dangerous on this issue of the energy tax because we need to fight back. Thomas Jefferson told us having a revolution every now and then is a good thing, but golly gee willikers, how could they possibly know that that was going to lead to violence? Here's what Sharon Engel said. If this Congress keeps going the way it is, people are really looking toward these Second Amendment remedies, saying, my goodness, what can we do to turn this country around? I'll tell you, the first thing we need to do is to take Harry Reid out. Now, that is the famous Second Amendment remedies comment, but always talking about taking the guys out on the other side. Here's Rush Limbaugh. I tell people, don't kill all the liberals. Leave enough so we can have 2 on every campus, living fossils, so we will never forget what these people stood for. Well, is he not munificent? Is he not generous? Leave 2 liberals, just kill the rest. But gee, I wonder where these hate-seeking missiles got their ideas. Here's Ann Coulter. We need to execute people like John Walker, and that was the a guy who was caught initially in the beginning of the Afghanistan war was an American, in order to physically intimidate liberals by making them realize that they can be killed too. Well, and we realize it because the people who are doing your bidding are out there shooting congressmen, are shooting us, shooting liberals, shooting Democrats nonstop. Here's Newt Gingrich, approving of the way the Tea Party has, quote, become the militant wing of the Republican Party. So he loves that. But then later he will say, oh, how dare people say that this is political and that we incited it. We just told them to be a militant wing and take Second Amendment remedies into their hands and kill almost all of the liberals. But how dare people suggest that? Here's Eric Erickson, a CNN commentator and a well-known conservative blogger. We have become or are becoming enslaved by the government. I dare him to try to come throw me in jail. I dare him to. I'll pull out my wife's shotgun and see how that little ACS twerp likes being scared at the door. They're not going on my property. Grab your guns. That's always the message. Ann Coulter, again, my only regret with Timothy McVeigh is he did not go to the New York Times building, meaning that everyone in the New York Times should have been bombed and killed. Representative Joe Barton, an elected congressman from Texas, put anything in my scope and I will shoot it. That was on a PowerPoint presentation specifically regarding the Obama administration. Gee, I wonder where they got the violent ideas in the first place. Here's Joyce Kaufman. She was briefly the chief of staff for Representative Allen West, an incoming Tea Party congressman from Florida. Quote, I am convinced that the most important thing the Founding Fathers did to ensure me my First Amendment's rights was they gave me a Second Amendment. And if ballots don't work, bullets will. Gee, I wonder where they got the idea. Now, can you find equal and opposite quote from liberals or Democrats? And the answer is, hell no you can't. There are no Democrats or liberals talking about killing all the Republicans, talking about how we should resort to bullets, Second Amendment remedies, etc. This false equivalency on this issue is repulsive. No, look, it is blind to the truth. The truth is that these leading conservatives in the country have been instigating this violence, inciting this violence over and over again. And the minute it happens and there's blood on the ground, they walk away going, oh, nobody could have seen it coming. Oh, no, not us. We had nothing to do with it. Well, let's look about that was the violence in. Let's look at the violence out. What were the results? Perhaps somehow it turned out that conservatives were shot at. Well, that didn't happen. It was always conservatives doing the shooting. And remember, by the way, it's not a coincidence as far as the violence coming from one party either, in the sense that they're the ones who say, grab your guns. They're the ones that say violence is the answer. War is the answer. Now to turn around and pretend that liberals are as much into violence or those kind of remedies, well, it just flies in the face of absolute reality. But the media will go along, I'm telling you this now, because they will, and I will show it to you in a second, I will prove it to you. They want to call it even. They're desperate to call it even. It's not even. Look at the results. So, July 27, 2008, Jim Atkinson shoots and kills 2 people at a progressive church in Knoxville, Tennessee, wounding 2 others. He says that it was that he had read books about how it was the liberals' fault. He wished he could have killed the top liberals, but he didn't have an opportunity, so he went to a church that he found to be a liberal church in the area and shot innocent liberals instead. Huh, interesting. Conservative targeting liberals. April 4th, 2009, neo-Nazi Richard Poplawski shoots and kills 3 police officers responding to a 911 call to his home in Pittsburgh. He tells his friends earlier, Obama is coming for my guns. I heard Obama's coming for my guns, and I'm not going to let them do it. April 25th, 2009, Joshua Cartwright, 28, a member of the Florida National Guard, shoots and kills 2 Okaloosa County Sheriff's deputies. Same exact thing. His wife reports that he said, they're coming for my guns. The government is coming for my guns. I'm not going to let them take it. Instead, he shoots 2 police officers. May 31st, 2009, Scott Roeder shoots and kills Dr. George Tiller, an abortion provider in the foyer of the Reformation Lutheran Church in Wichita, Kansas. And that's another interesting theme, that they like shooting people in church. But they say, oh, no, they couldn't have been. It's not like anybody incited them to that. Let me pause here to give you a clip to see if someone incited him or not. Let's go to clip number 8 and see if we can find out who incited people to kill Dr. Tiller.
In the state of Kansas, there is a doctor, George Tiller, who will execute babies for $5,000. Dr. George Tiller, known as Tiller the Baby Killer. Tiller the Baby Killer, as some call him. Dr. George Tiller in Kansas, known as Tiller the Baby Killer. Dr. George Tiller, known as Tiller the Baby Killer. Tiller the Baby Killer. The notorious Tiller the Baby Killer. I wanted George Tiller and Tiller the Baby Killer going, hey, I can make more money killing babies now. Tiller is executing fetuses in his Wichita clinic for $5,000. Tiller performs scores, perhaps thousands, as we've reported. Tiller aborts thousands of babies pretty much for any reason.
Gee, I wonder where they got the idea. I'm sure it was totally random. It's not like they turned on Fox News and were told who to directly target for their violence. June 10th, 2009, James von Braun, a convicted felon and hardcore neo-Nazi, walks into the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., and shoots and kills a security guard. Again, right-wing, anti-government, killing based on race and politics. Again, a conservative. Again, targeting people he viewed to be on the other side. July 13th, 2009, Gilbert Ortez Jr. kills a police deputy in Chambers County, Texas, with an assault rifle. Same motif. They're coming for my guns. I got to kill the police. They told me it's big government. February 18th, 2010, Joseph Stack of Austin, Texas, flies a single-engine plane into an office building containing nearly 200 IRS employees, killing 1 and wounding 13. He had mixed politics, but his main message, as with Loeffner, anti-government. The government is the enemy, and I must kill the government. Gee, I wonder where he got that idea. May 20th, 2010, Jerry Kane Jr., 45, and his son Joseph Kane, 16, fatally shoot 2 Arkansas police officers with an AK-47 assault rifle during a routine traffic stop on Interstate 40 in West Memphis. They were going to kill liberals, but they got into, well, I should say, again, the same idea of, watch out, son, they're coming for our guns. As soon as we run into the police, we're going to give it to them 1 bullet at a time. That was, by the way, almost exactly what Lars Larson, a conservative talk show host, said on air, approvingly reading an email by one of his listeners, if the government comes for me, I'm going to give them my weapons 1 bullet at a time. And you see that list every single time we have these conservative nut jobs giving the cops their weapons 1 bullet at a time. Now, July 18th, 2010, California Highway Patrol officers arrest Byron Williams, 45, after a shootout on I-580 in which more than 60 rounds were fired. Where was he going? He was going to the ACLU and the Tides Foundation because Glenn Beck told him that that is where the liberals were conspiring to control the government and to control the country. And he had to take out those liberals because Beck told him to do it. He told him that it was the cancer. He says, oh, Beck sometimes says not to do violence, but I know he's winking and nodding because he tells me where the target is. And luckily, no one died in that immense shootout. If he had actually gotten to the Tides Foundation, God knows how many would have been murdered. Now, January 8th, 2011, Jared Lee Loeffner, 22, shoots U.S. Representative Gabrielle Giffords and 19 others at a Congress in Your Corner event at a Safeway supermarket in Tucson. He kills 6, including federal judge John Roll, and wounds 14, including Giffords, who was shot in the head. But I'm sure that it was all a coincidence that all of these people were anti-government, conservatives, who were out to kill either liberals or the government officials or cops, people that they viewed to be on the side of big government. I'm not saying that there aren't psychos in the world that are going to do killings. What I'm saying is, what the right wing does is take advantage of those psychos. They turn those psychos and they direct them. They say, oh, you want to kill somebody? You want to get violent? You want to grab your gun? I'm going to show you what you should do with your gun. You should aim it at these guys. That's how they create psychotic, hate-seeking missiles. Now, to give you a sense of more of the violence that was instigated by the right wing, here is Glenn Beck talking about, well, murdering Michael Moore. Clip number 9.
Hang on, let me just tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about killing Michael Moore. And I'm wondering if I could kill him myself or if I would need to hire somebody to do it.
Or you could just tell somebody on the radio.
I think I could. I think he could be looking me in the eye, you know? and I could just be choking the life out. Is this wrong?
Yes. Yes, it is dead wrong. And he says, look, I could do it or somebody else could do it as long as somebody kills Michael Moore. Look, that's a direct incitement of violence. Somebody just got put away for that in New Jersey. That's a crime. We're not talking about, hey, you know what, they used targets, they used bullseyes, they had loaded language. No, no, no. He said, I would like to kill Michael Moore. But they say, gee, golly gee willikers, where would anybody get the idea that it was us directing the violence? If you don't think that's enough, here's another set of clips from Glenn Beck.
Everything that is getting pushed through Congress, including this health care bill, they are all driven by President Obama's thinking on one idea: reparations. His goal is creating a new America, a new model, a model that will settle old racial scores.
This president, I think, has exposed himself as a guy over and over and over again who has a deep-seated hatred for white people. This guy is, I believe, a racist.
Like it or not, fascism is on the rise. President Obama, why don't you just set us on fire? Maybe our government wants to stir the pot so they can use the iron fist and crush people.
But I'm going to go a step further than Rush Limbaugh. I think Barack Obama doesn't want America to succeed.
Yeah. So, Speaker Pelosi, I just wanted to... You going to drink your wine? I want you to drink it now. Drink it. By the way, I put poison in your... No,
Yeah, gee, I wonder where they got the idea to kill Democratic politicians. Golly gee willikers. How about guns? Where'd they get that idea? Let's go to Mike Gallagher, conservative talk show host, who, by the way, replaced Glenn Beck in New York on his radio station. Here's the brilliance he was promoted for.
See, liberals hate the idea of an armed citizenry. They just hate the concept. They despise it. It terrifies them. You know what? I have been promising for the last 6 months that I want to get a gun. I mean, it's no question, there's no mystery that my wife Denise, when she was alive, she abhorred the idea. We fought about it. We actually had some pretty bad arguments because I really felt as her guardian and as my family's protector, I want to have a gun. She died last June. It's time I get a gun and do what I know to be right. Well, you know what? I don't want to do it alone. I just realized something. You know what would be a perfect exercise? For our show, we need to get a national movement to register as many people as we can who, like me, have not been gun owners to become gun owners.
Gee, I wonder where conservatives or psychos got the idea to grab their guns, that the government was coming for them, that the Democratic politicians were the problem, and that they could seek a Second Amendment remedy to that problem. Gee, I don't know. If you're still not convinced, here's another compilation. This one's from Brave New Films. Check it out and see if you can make it come to a conclusion.
Opponents of reform are making their feelings known in a very ugly way, phoning anonymous threats to members of the House.
I hope you die.
You will rue the day you did this, Mr. Stupak.
Louise Slaughter received one call threatening to, quote, kill the children of the members who voted yes.
Vandalism at the Arizona office of Gabby Giffords.
White powder has been sent to Representative Anthony Weiner's office.
Faxes like these, images of a noose and a Nazi SS insignia.
Someone hurled a brick through the window of my district office in the dark of night.
Another brick shattered glass doors at the Democratic Party headquarters in Rochester, New York.
A pair of Tea Party activists in Virginia posted what they thought was Congressman Tom Perriello's home address, urging opponents of the health care bill to, quote, drop by.
Federal and local authorities are investigating a severed gas line at the home of Congressman Tom Perriello's brother.
April 19th, the modern-day anti-government movement is trying to get as many people as they can openly carrying firearms to get as close as they legally can to Washington, D.C.
There are rifles being cleaned right now. Do you folks understand?
Being what? Claimed from where?
There are rifles being taken out of the closet and cleaned.
At this point, when you turn on the media, and I will show you some clips in the next segment, there is an effort to pretend that it's both-sided. That is nothing short of a lie. It is not both-sided. It is clearly one-sided. It has been directed almost exclusively at Democrats, liberals, progressives. and government officials. It has been directed exclusively by conservative talk show hosts and politicians. And it has been at the hands of exclusively conservatives. Now, they might be psychos, but they're conservative psychos. So it is idea of whitewashing this. And one final trick that they do to whitewash it is, oh no, you shouldn't be upset. Yeah, so what? 6 people got killed, including a 9-year-old girl. Yeah, now that's very upsetting, but let's not worry about who incited it. Let's just focus on a lone gunman. It's always a lone gunman. He acted alone. No need to get alarmed. We don't want to change anything. We don't want to call out the people who are responsible. Well, that would be journalism. No, no, no. What we need to do instead is to protect the guilty, to make sure that there are no consequences for them, that they can go ahead and do this again and again. And that's why I'm telling you. Because if you don't find a way to limit this damage, and I'm not saying pass laws against speech or anything like that, but I'm saying, hey, if there aren't consequences, like perhaps a sponsor says, hey, you know what, I don't want to sponsor a guy who's talking about killing every liberal in the country. I don't want to sponsor a guy who's talking about assassinating people like Michael Moore. If there aren't some, or at least at the very least, somebody's pointed out and say, these guys did it. Not the killing, but the inciting. They're the ones who incite day in and day out. If you don't say that, they're going to go back to doing it tomorrow. And then the next time there's a psycho, and I read you only a partial list of the psychos that did the killings. They will do it again and again. Beck and Limbaugh and all the others will come out and go, no one could have seen it coming, and go back on the air and do the same exact incitement of violence. Somebody has to begin to put an end to it. It's killing us, literally. Young Turks.
In the name of...
All right, back on the Young Turks. All right, now, by the way, of course, this is not done, and that's why I told you in the last segment, watch out, right? Well, the reason we're having this conversation because it's not over. It's not going to be over. In fact, Illinois Congressman Danny Davis has received a threat saying, you're next. Now, there's been many threats throughout the country. So far, since Saturday when the shooting happened, again, you're going to be shocked to find out, even though the media is calling it even, that every single threat has been against a Democratic politician. There's one to Bob Bennett in Colorado. I'm sorry, Michael Bennett in Colorado. There's one to Danny Davis, which was the most chilling. There's been more threats throughout the country. And by the way, I don't want anyone to get me wrong. The last thing I want is for any threats to go in the opposite direction. That's not what we do. We win on the basis of ideas. That is why the right wing has to resort to violence, because they are stupid. And they cannot win based on ideas. They cannot win based on facts, science, or truth. So they grab their guns because they're animals. Of course not all of them, but I'm talking about the people who are doing this stuff. Okay, we never do that because we're smarter than them and we're more right. Now, immediately after the Giffords shooting, a Republican senator came out and told reporters, hey, you know what? We need to tone down our rhetoric. This is getting out of hand. And this is a real problem, right? And first of all, he had the courage to hide by being anonymous. Can you imagine? All he's saying is we got to tone down our rhetoric. But he's so scared of what the Tea Party will do to him that he doesn't even put his name on it. Okay, and by the way, that was the last time you heard a Republican say that it was in any way their rhetoric that might be a slight issue. Immediately, they kicked it into hyperdrive to attack against the other side and to say they had no responsibility whatsoever. Now, a perfect example of that is Lamar Alexander. He went on to talk about Sarah Palin and defending her. He was on with Candy Crowley of CNN. She had asked him, hey, look, she did the gun site. Gabrielle Giffords was on the gun sites. And by the way, in that last video we showed you in the last segment, on the Brave New Films compilation, and they mentioned Gabby Giffords being targeted. That was not after the shooting. They had done that months ago, early in the early in last year, they had put together that video. So when they tell you nobody could have seen it coming, that's a flat-out lie. How did Brave New Films know to do a compilation if they didn't see it coming? They said, look, watch out for this. We knew that this was going to happen, and it happened. But Lamar Alexander says, no way. It's not even appropriate to ask the Sarah Palin question. Watch.
Well, Candy, I think you're by bringing this up of doing the very thing you're trying to condemn. I mean, you're making and implying a direct connection between Sarah Palin and what happened.
No, I specifically said we need to tie it away from that.
Picking out a particular incident. Well, I think the way to get away from it is for you not to be talking about it.
Yeah, shush, shush. Don't talk about it. So let us keep doing the violent imagery. Let us talk about grabbing our M16s and targeting people for elimination. But if you dare talk about it, what we did is not inappropriate. You mentioning it is inappropriate. I mean, they've got some chutzpah, man. They really do. All right. Of course, he's not alone. It has now been flipped. And Judson Phillips, for example, the leader of the Tea Party Nation, the founder of it, says that it is the liberals who are the problem. He told followers in an email, the shooter was a liberal lunatic, emphasis on both words. Any documentation on that? Nope, who cares? Just, it doesn't matter. As long as you win the propaganda war, the truth doesn't matter. Just call him a liberal, even though he shot a Democrat. Even though he doesn't have one liberal position. Just call him a pot-smoking atheist. Who cares? Just win the propaganda war. He continues, the hard left is going to try and silence the Tea Party movement by blaming us for this. Like they did, he says, in regards to the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. They're going to blame conservative talk radio, especially Rush Limbaugh. The tactic worked then, backing conservatives off and possibly helping to ensure a second Clinton term. You think that this is about is that what they think this is in terms of when they call it politics? That somehow, when I heard the news and I was enraged, and all of you heard the news and you were enraged, you thought, oh, how can we win more elections because of this? No, you schmucks. We just don't want people getting killed. That's what we're concerned about. You know why they think that? It's classic projection, because that's what they would do. They would immediately turn around and think, oh, good, good, good. How can we win more elections? I don't give it. I'm not telling you which way to vote. I'm just telling these conservative people, hey, when next time you say to kill somebody on air, just pause for a second. Think about it, because there are psychos that listen to you. Glenn Beck, of course, goes the extra step and says, no. It wasn't just that we're not at fault. We're the victims. He, on air, read an email that he had sent to Sarah Palin and then her response. Let me read you parts of his email. He said, Sarah, as you know, peace is always the answer. Was peace the answer, by the way, Glenn, when you talked about killing Michael Moore or Nancy Pelosi, etc.? He says, no, peace is always the answer. I know you're feeling the same heat, if not much more on this. I want you to know that you have my support. Please look into protection for your family. An attempt on you could bring the republic down. So now Sarah Palin is the victim, and there's going to be an attempt on her based on what, right? Now, they say that she has a stalker. If she does, they should bring the full weight of the law against that person, okay? But she's the one who did the target. She wasn't the one that was targeted. No commentator or politician on the left side has ever said that Sarah Palin should be taken out and put her face on a target scope or anything like that. No, but somehow Sarah Palin became the victim in all this. And he says, by the way, even within that is implied violence. If anything were to happen to Sarah Palin, it would take the republic down. Why? Because then, of course, there would be more violence from the right wing. I mean, what does he mean, take the republic down? What does that mean? He says Sarah Palin emailed him back, oh, I hate violence. I hate war, except for all the wars that she's pushed for. Our children will not have peace if politicos just capitalize on this to succeed in portraying anyone as inciting terror and violence. Thanks for all you do to send the message of truth and love and God as the answer. When they're putting people in the scope, there is no God, there's no love, there's no peace. But when all of a sudden they get called out on it, oh, peace, love, God, absolutely. By the way, the stalker they're talking about is Sean Christie, and the guy is trouble, and I don't give a damn who he thinks he's going after. I mean, they should definitely, if these reports on her stalker are correct, they should lock his ass down, man. He's, look, and you know what? In fact, the person who I'm going to leave it right there. Look, anybody who does it on any side cannot be tolerated at all, okay? Now, and this Sean Christie guy is not a guy just talking. He sent her a letter that was threatening, etc. So we're not having that. It's crazy, okay? Anyway, so now, when we go to, okay, so that's the right wing's attempts, right? And, well, by the way, let me just give you one last one. Rush Limbaugh. Loeffner is a lone nut, he says, and he says that the guy was into heavy metal, and he says, quote, the guy listened to heavy metal and some of that anarchist stuff. We're dealing with an insane individual. Anarchist, left wing, because he listened to heavy metal. Did he listen to anarchist songs? Who cares? Heavy metal, good enough. Later he'll blame rap as well. He says, as far as we know, no one said yet that he watched Fox News, so he must not have. He says, and the real culprits are the parents. He says, where are the parents? Are they derelicts? He was so and then he talks about how the guy was devoted to marijuana. Of course. Take out all your boogeymen. By the way, the parents were so besieged by the media, etc., they had barricaded themselves into their house. The FBI had to talk them down and say, no, we really are the FBI. We're not here to harm you, and to get into the house, okay? And then, of course, whose fault is it? It's the Democratic sheriff. Sheriff Dupnick, who had talked about how Arizona has become the mecca for this kind of violence and nonsense. No, he should have done something about it. It's his fault. He should get fired. And he says, how about the safety net? We spent all these billions of dollars on the safety net. Why didn't it catch this cycle? Well, first of all, you're the one who tried to shred the safety net. Second of all, Reagan, your hero, is the one that shut down all the psych wards. Well, it says, well, too bad. Ha-ha, liberals said they wanted a safety net. It didn't catch this guy. It's the liberals' fault. And, of course, the classic trick that he does is they will now try to shut down our speech. Again, we are the victims, not the people who got shot, but the people who incited the violence are the victims. And if they do anything against us, even if they speak against us, that means they're trying to shut us down. Don't let them do it. And finally, he said, they say we encourage the violence, but how about rap music? You hear the violence all the time in the liberal rap music. So is it the heavy metal or the rap music? Rush, which one is it? Roger Ailes, the head of Fox News, says to tie this guy into the Fox News channel or the Tea Party is, quote, bullshit. And he says, who's at fault? Quote, both sides. Call it even, look away. And he says, I told all of our guys, shut up, tone it down, make your argument intellectually. You don't have to do it with bombast. I hope the other side does that as well. Yeah, that's funny, Roger. Very, very funny. All right, now, how's the media playing? Well, let's go to Matt Lauer first. He's going to be talking with Steve Farley. He's a Democratic state representative from Arizona who knew Gabrielle Giffords. Let's see the spin on this. Clip number 5.
Steve, when you talk politics, when you say heal our politics, I mean, it's easy. The temptation is to say this is politically motivated in some way. But this young man, this alleged shooter, didn't only target a member of Congress. He shot a 9-year-old girl. That's not about politics. That's about insanity, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. This is not about politics
He's absolutely
in any way.
wrong.
This is about one deranged individual. But in a climate in which we demonize each other on both sides, instead of work together to come to a solution for all of our problems, if there's rhetoric that becomes violent and virulent, people who are already unhinged could be pushed over the edge, and we cannot have that happen.
Steve, when you talk...
So he gets a Democrat to say, oh, no, believe me, both sides, just call it even. It's not about politics. He shot a 9-year-old. Yeah, here's who he shot first, the Congresswoman in the back of the head. Then he shot her staff. Then he shot a judge. And then, as he was in the middle of shooting off his gun, he also happened to shoot, or intended to shoot, innocent civilians, including a 9-year-old girl. That does not absolve him. I know Matt Lauer is not trying to absolve him of the crime. What he's trying to do is absolve the right wing of the hatred that they drive people like Loeffner to. No, please, please, please call it even. One more for you. Joe Klein's of Time Magazine is going to be talking to Howard Kurtz on CNN, and they're both desperate to call it even too.
You've mentioned a couple of times Fox News. MSNBC, we played earlier a clip from Keith Olbermann bringing in Sarah Palin and Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly in a way that I question, are they really part of the strategy? And in your Time column, you say that Olbermann had more than a few moments of solipsistic self-righteousness.
Oh, yeah.
So this is not necessarily only a Fox News issue.
Well, that brings me to point number two. It's really hard. We choose, cable news chooses, not to really deal with complicated issues with the level of complexity that they deserve. I was on Ed Schultz's show to discuss Afghanistan. I was just back from there. It is the most complicated issue imaginable. And the guy writes down on a piece of paper, "Get out now," and holds it up in front of the screen. That's so stupid, and it's so unworthy. And it really, you know, it's one of the reasons why people hold us in lower regard than they do lawyers.
All right, get a load of what happened here, okay? If you're just watching that, 1 minute went by and you're like, what, huh? In the end, you got a sense of who's at fault for the shooting. Keith Olbermann and Ed Schultz. Ed Schultz pushed to get us out of Afghanistan so we have less war, less violence, less killing. That apparently is a stupid position, right? And somehow that means that all of cable news, both sides, are equally guilty. By the way, we showed you just in this hour tons of clips, dozens of clips and quotes from their side directly encouraging violence. How is Olbermann related to that? Howard Kurtz says, well, he's self-righteous sometimes. And even if that were true, who cares? What does that have to do with this? Well, the other guys encourage people to kill people, but one guy is self-righteous and the other one makes simple points about Afghanistan. How do you call that even? It's because they're obsessed. They have to prove to the Republicans that they are neutral. It doesn't matter what the Republicans do. It doesn't matter what the conservatives do. Those guys will never call them out on it. They will always call it even. Even in the most extreme case here, where we have a Democratic politician shot in the back of the head. And still, they call it even because Ed Schultz wants to get out of Afghanistan and Keith Olbermann is self-righteous. And they call the Schultz, etc., stupid for lack of logic? Are you kidding me? What kind of logic was that? It was grotesque. Look, I got to keep going. You know what? I'm going to tell you what happened to the victims now. Because there are consequences when you encourage this kind of violence. All right, one of the victims, as you've probably heard by now, is Christina Taylor Greene. She was 9 years old. She was born on 9/11 of 2001. She was put in a book of babies that got born that day that gave us hope. She went to go see the congresswoman because she was elected to the student council and wanted to, learn more about the government. She was as bright a kid as you could possibly imagine, shot dead by someone who was encouraged to go out there and kill people who were involved in the government. Shot dead. Then Dorwin Stoddard, 76 years old. He was killed protecting his wife. He put his body over hers and got shot in a way that it appears was because of shielding his wife. She also got shot in the leg, but when he got shot in the body, she did not get shot. He did. He died. George and Dorothy Morris were another couple that were at the event. They were high school sweethearts. She was 76 years old, and so was he. They both got shot. George is at the hospital. He also tried to protect his wife. He shielded her body as well. She got hit and died anyway. And then there are some heroes. A 20-year-old intern by the name of Daniel Hernandez rushed to the Congresswoman's aid even as they were firing the guns to make sure that he got there in time to try to help her. And then there's a woman who has not been identified, who I think is maybe the biggest hero out of all these. When Loeffner's gun finally ran out of ammunition, and by the way, he had a semi-automatic. During the Democratic years of Clinton, etc., they had passed a bill that would only allow 10 bullets a gun. This one had about 33 bullets per gun, allowing him to kill many more people. Not animals, not for hunting. This is to kill people. And when he finally ran out of those 33 bullets, a woman in the crowd, not a man, but a woman, jumped on top of him, knocked away his extra magazine. Then when he went to load the second or the third magazine at that point, the gun apparently malfunctioned, and then 2 other guys jumped on top of him. But the courage that woman had to jump on top of him. Now, as I tell you that story, remember Sarah Palin's tweet. She told them, when you target Gabrielle Giffords, don't retreat, reload. He was in the middle of reloading when this woman jumped on top of him to try to prevent it. And eventually the guys tackled him and got him. And of course, Judge John Roll has passed away. He was also one of the people that was there. Zimmerman, as an aide to the Congresswoman, he has also been shot and killed. My effort today is not to blame people for political reasons. I'm not looking for some stupid electoral advantage. I mean, I honestly couldn't, I didn't even understand what they meant when they said, oh, they're trying to make this political, right? In that sense. But I do know what they mean in the other sense. The other sense is, don't ever blame us. Doesn't matter what we say, doesn't matter if we tell them to go grab their guns and start killing people. We are not at fault, and we're going to do it again. And when we do, you know what's going to happen? Sweet people like Dorothy Morris are going to get killed, even though their lifelong mates try desperately to stop it. And they're going to wake up at a hospital, and he's going to say, what happened to Dorothy? And they're going to say Dorothy died because some politician put Gabrielle Giffords on a map and told psychos out there to go target her. And some commentators said that they should be killed. And that girl's parents, you think I'm mad. Oh my God. And then they tell me to calm down. The rage I would have. And of course, I'm out of time here, but the guy they're blaming now, and this you will see it, it's the beginning now, you will see it going forward, and we'll talk about it more later, is Sheriff Dupnick. Sheriff Dupnick, let me give you this one quote in the time that I have here. Came out and told everybody, look, when you look at unbalanced people, how they respond to the vitriol that comes out of certain mouths about tearing down the government, the anger, the hatred, the bigotry that goes on in this country is getting to be outrageous. And unfortunately, Arizona, I think, has become sort of the capital. We've become the mecca for prejudice and bigotry. How dare he point out the truth? So now they will try to rip down Sheriff Dupnick. One, they will say he's a Democrat. Number two, he's making this political. They'll say he's not focusing on the investigation. And since Rush Limbaugh gives them their marching orders, and Limbaugh said today he should be targeted, he didn't use those words to be fair, that Dupnick is the guy responsible, because why didn't he catch the guy, this Loeffner, in the first place? So the only guy who will be fired from this, in my guess, and the only guy who will take any kind of heat at all, in terms of real, like, hey, is he going to keep his job or not keep his job, will be the Democrat, Sheriff Dupnick. Because always the victims must be blamed. Young Turks.